Hey, peace and blessings. Peace to the true and living. The true and living, checking this out. You are the true and living. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. It's your brother Saray back with yet another one. With this one, I know we've been running down the 48 laws of power. Um, I'm gonna take a break from the 48 laws of power. Um, just this video, we're probably gonna pick it up very shortly. But I just want to do a quick one. Let's see here. This ties into some of the other stuff we've been doing about the Sabian thing. This ties into some of the other things that we've been doing about the Twa. I know we've done previous videos in regards to the four phases of Egyptian civilization. That's kind of been laid out by Gerald Massey. That's kind of the model that we've been using on a lot of our videos as far as the ancient world is concerned. The Sabian phase being the first, the lunar phase, the solar lunar phase, and then the solar phase. That's kind of what we've been dealing with. And in a lot of our previous stuff, we've been correlating the Sabian thing with Ethiopians. You see what I'm saying? And we had the whole thing where we were talking about Eastern Ethiopia being India, Western Ethiopia being Africa, and Ethiopia proper being Arabia itself. You see what I'm saying? Phoenicians coming basically from Arabia, sailing all over the world or whatever case may be, and all of that. A lot of that. Some of it is more, some of the stuff we were kind of going over, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little broader. Today, ran across some great research. It's a lady, what's the lady's name? Dana, man, yeah, Dana Marnich, right? She does a lot of stuff on I'm gonna be quoting from, I think this is a blog post that she did. It's something just in the public domain on Skrill, but it just has a bunch of some of the points that she breaks down in her whole thing. She has a whole body of work, man. Like um videos. She got a YouTube channel. I posted in the comments or something like that. Excuse me, posted in the description or something like that. Um yeah, she has a whole body of work. I mean, she has like a 400-page book, I think, by the same title. You see what I'm saying? Going into this whole thing, like deep diving into it. Um, I was thoroughly impressed by the specifics of a lot of her stuff or whatever. And it kind of correlates with the stuff we've been kind of talking about, and it fills in a lot of the blanks. So I just figured I'd just kind of do a little short piece on some of the stuff that I got from her, just her blog post. But this is less me doing a deep dive on this. It's really more me drawing attention to her whole little niche area of research or whatever case may be, because she explains it better than I ever could. But I'm just bringing it out because it corresponds with many of the things that we've already been talking about in greater detail. So um, what I'm gonna be going over, I know y'all probably seen the title of the video. Israel found in Arabia. Israel found in Arabia. Now, I know we kind of, you know, when we dealing with like the whole biblical thing, we talk about the people of the book, the Christians, your Judaic people, as well as your Muslim people or what have you. Your Judaic people are associated with Israel in the story. Your Islamic people are associated with Ishmael in the story or whatever. It's 12 tribes on each side or whatever case may be, and everything like that. The Arabic and Hebrew are dialects that come from another language. Hebrew is related to Aramaic. Arabic's related to Ashuric. I think they come from some higher language like Syriac or something like that. But they're very, very similar or whatever case may be. So you can kind of see that. What she goes into like a lot of the tribal data as far as the African tribes or whatever. Me personally, I'm not really a stickler or real big on the Hebrew thing. That's not my niche. I got respect for my Hebrew Israelites, all my people who deal with that or whatever. That's just not my area of specificity. However, it does tie into a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. So let's kind of get into some of the points that's being made in this. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm gonna go into page. If y'all go on Scrib, y'all can see this: the Afro-Arabian origin of Israelite and Ishmaelites by Dana Marnich. So I go into this. Okay, so in the first page, she says who are the Ishmaelites, and she talks about regions to know. She talks about different regions of Arabia. She talks about the first one is the Hejaz region, western region of Arabia, stretching between the region south of Sinai to Yemen. Okay, major cities include Mecca, Medina, and Jeddah. The Nejd is the second one she mentions. The Central Arabia now including Yamama region originally stretched to the Euphrates. It is bounded by the Hejaz in the west and the Bahrain in the east and Yemen in the south. So as you can see, a lot of what she's talking about as she talks about the locations of some of these places, the borders of some of these places over time have kind of shrunk and gotten more confined, as far as what we know to be Arabia. She talks about Yemen. Yemen was the general name for all of the southern portion of Arabia. Um, I know we on previous videos we've talked about Yemen. We've talked about the southern tip of Arabia and everything like that. We talked about how the Habesha tribes come out of the southern tip of Arabia and then they move to both sides of the Red Sea and all that, or whatever case maybe. We discussed that on previous videos. The other portion she talks about, the other region she talks about Al Hara, a volcanic region now encompassing northwestern Arabia, once including similar regions stretching into southern Syria, Medina, and was in the area of Hara. So those are the various regions and everything like that. The reason that's important because she's gonna go over she's gonna revisit those place names and stuff. I'm not gonna read this whole thing. I'm just gonna kind of skip around a little bit to some of the important points, kind of going over some of the stuff that we've kind of discussed in previous videos, kind of correlating with that or whatever. I would seriously advise anybody who's interested in pretty much a lot of this ancient history stuff, whatever. She has some very, very good research, man. Very good stuff. Um, okay, like with things like this. Um, I know we do a lot of stuff on the ancient world. I know a lot of people might ask me, man, why you did nothing on China and in Asia? Because I can't say nothing to Renoko Rashida ain't already said. I'm just gonna be quoting his material because he already said it, and I can't say it no better. So that's kind of how I feel about the research that she's done in this. I mean, I can't really say it no better. So ain't no all I can do. All I need to do is refer you to her stuff. So okay, so this is page 2, right? Okay, so according to the Western historical interpretations of the Semites were the Hebrews and Arabians. Hamites were Africans and Japhethites were either Europeans or East Asians, depending on the period. The notion that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were peoples of varied appearance. Okay, so now she goes into this. Now, if you recall on a previous video, we were talking about the flood story, the Greek flood story with Deucalion and all that stuff like that. And I was talking about that's a weird notion that one man of one particular race has 3 sons, and those 3 sons are of 3 distinct different races. That doesn't really make any sense. So what she's giving a little she's clarifying that the notion that Shem, Ham, and Japheth were peoples of varied appearance is something that is contradicted in early Arabian genealogical sources. So in their actual genealogical sources, it talks about they're not 3 different people. In Arabian tradition, the descendants of Noah were Arabians who had settled various lands after the flood. So basically what she's saying is Noah was an Arab. The sons of Noah were Arabs. So thus Hebrews and all that, they're just another iteration of Arab. And I think, I know the marketing of it, like there's something different. There's been a market, kind of like a marketing campaign to market them differently. But in reality, as you can see, like when we watch the movies and stuff, they're in the desert, they're dressed like Arabs, they're doing the same thing that Arabs do, or whatever case may be, as far as the lifestyle and everything like that. Okay, so let's see here. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna go to page 3 and keep moving. Okay, so Some of the other children of Ishmael, son of Hagar, are, according to Genesis tradition, the Nabatati, Kedar, Massa, are called children of Ishmael, son of Hagar, daughter of Misrite woman. Okay, according to H. Timir, Paul, THD, Harper's Bible Dictionary, San Francisco Harper and Row published in 1985, the term Ishmaelite was synonymous with the term Midianite. So that's going to come into play a little bit later. But basically, she's saying Ishmael, the son of Abraham, Ishmaelites were synonymous with Midianites in certain places. Biblical book of Habakkuk 3:7 speaks of Jokshan as Cushan. The prophet Habakkuk parallels Cushan with Midian, the tents of Cushan, the dwellings of Midian. The identification of the children of Keturah with the children of Hagar is witnessed in Genesis 37:28 and other places where the Midianites are called Ishmaelites. So you can clearly see in the Bible they're kind of interchangeable in certain places. Some Midianite traders passed by, so pulling Joseph up, his brothers lifted him out of the pit. They sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. So he just basically going in, talking about how they're kind of interchangeable. Let me see here. Y'all bear with me. We're gonna keep going down. Okay, okay. Let's see here. A second here. Okay. Hold on one second. I'm gonna utilize the pause button real quick and to speed this up. All right. So the tribes of Cushan are historically. Hold on one second. Make sure it's running. Okay. The tribes of Cushan are historically known in the works of Ptolemy. The same tribes is named Agatharchides as Cassandrius in circa 1 century by Diodorus of Sicily, the Gasanda. In Arabia, they were originally living in an area called Wadi Madian in Jordan. And I'm butchering names. Yeah, if I'll check her stuff out, she can pronounce the names better than I ever can. And extended into Egypt, where the land was named Goshen or Guzan in the area of modern Gaza. They were also located southeast of Mecca, and later are the early Arabian Christians called Ghassan in Syria. In Samaritan Greek translations of the Bible, the word Cush is translated as Ethiopian because the Cushan, also lived in Africa under the name Cush in what was then Nubia. This was also part of Arabia. So she's saying everything east of the Nile was a part of Arabia as well. Like how we said, what we understand Arabia to be has kind of shrunk over time. Okay, so let's see here. Um, Lived in Africa under the name Cush in what was then Nubia, and this was also part of Arabia of the early Greek writers like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus. Ethiopia, however, had become the term for all black people, whom, according to Ephorus of the 4th century BC, and occupied all the southern coast of Asia. Later Greek biblical translators saw no inconsistency in calling northern Arabians Ethiopians, since they were an extension of the Kushi in Africa south of Egypt. So basically what we get into, and I think it was something else she put out. She was basically talking about the Moors, and she was basically talking about that the name Moor is not an exonym. It's not a name that other people gave them. Like how they make us think that everything, Ethiopian, oh that just mean black. Okay, well, Moor, oh that just mean black. Everything just mean black. But in reality, a lot of these names, as she kind of gets into in some of her stuff, these are indigenous names. These are like tribal distinctions and stuff like that. But the thing about it is, the people on the outside looking in, okay, these people call themselves one thing, and people from the outside looking in just realize that all the people who call themselves that just so happen to be black. So they just assumed that this was a black thing, or this was a name that meant black. So they just attributed it to meaning black. But like how we talked about the Ethiopian thing, we talked about in another video, that has nothing to do with their complexion. You see what I'm saying? We got into what, Ethiopian, means and everything like that. Okay, so let's see here. Let's keep moving. Let's see here. The Ishmaelites or descendants of Hagar, and the Midianites or Kushites, Jukshan or Kushan of Keturah of the Bible were unquestionably one and the same Ethiopian people. They were settled on both sides of the Arabian Sea in the time of Josephus, who claimed that Keturah and the children and grandchildren were those who had settled the region of the Ethiopian troglodyte. Okay, so this is something that we had said before. Ethiopia was Arabia for the Greek writers of the start of the Christian era. As much as Arabia was an extension of Ethiopia, because in previous videos we were talking about Eastern Ethiopia, Western Ethiopia, and Arabia is Ethiopia proper. So the name Cush in the Bible is also used for the tribes known as Kushan or Jokshan. Okay, Saba is a child of Cush, son of Ham, and is also Saba or Sheba, like how we talk about the Queen of Sheba, who was in fact a child of Jokshan. And with Dedan or Yadadas, Dedan or Dedon is a Zedwan, Dedon. That's a very ancient deity going back to, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 3000 BC at least. Is the deity of incense. The lion, he has the head of a lion. He's the deity of incense and everything like that. Worship in Marowway and everything like that. She goes into talking about how the people from Marowway are actually Sabians, kind of like how what we've been talking about. A lot of your Egyptian influence comes from Arabia. Okay, so see Josephus' Antiquities and were no doubt partly responsible for the name of the region of Kush. Josephus and Strabo claimed the inhabitants of Marowway were Arabians and Sabians, and everything east of the Nile in the troglodyte country were Arabian. Okay, so let's see here. Let's keep moving on. I'm gonna jump. Because like I said, I'm not trying to read all of this, but at the same time, I just kind of, just point out a couple of things that she talks about, and you can kind of see the contrast of what she's talking about. Is very similar to what we've been talking about going through this whole playlist on the ancient world, if you've been kind of following that. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so she talks about the fall of the pure and metrofocal Arabians. Okay, metrofocal Arabians. I'm assuming when she says that, she's talking about they were kind of woman focused, woman centered. Okay, when we talked about the Sabians as far as their religion, you see what I'm saying? We talked about Ethiopian meaning Ad-Ophion. That's dealing with their religion, the religion of mother and child worship and stuff like that. We talk about the Sabians as described by Gerald Massey. It's in Book of Beginnings and everything like that. It's a mother and child cult. They worship the Great Mother. We talked about, according to the book Celestial Ship of the North, the word Habesha is a reference to the Great Mother. You see what I'm saying? So let's kind of get into that. So by the time of Muhammad, Iranians and Romans had strong influence on both the early Afro-Arabs of Arabia and Syria Peninsula. Several early writers spoke of the destruction of the matri-focused tradition and goddess worship of the Afro-Arabians. Did we say that Ethiopian? That was their religion. You see what I'm saying? That was a reference to their religion. Okay, so let's see here. And goddess worship of the Afro-Arabian indigenous populations of Hijaz. Hijaz is the northwest, the northwest Arabia. The author seemed to have taken particular satisfaction in smiting the daughters of Allah and other goddesses worshipped by the Khazraj. According to Muslim documents, these idols were accustomed to manifesting themselves as wailing black women with disheveled hair when later followers of the prophet came to destroy them. So she goes into whole stories and stuff like that about, followers of the prophet Muhammad destroying the idols in the temple of Manad and Al-Uzza and all that stuff like that. And Manad and Al-Uzza and Alat were pre-Islamic deities. So she's saying like the fall of the matro-focused Arabians or the Ethiopian Arabians, however, Ad-Ophian Arabians, the ones who were into the worship of the Great Mother, however it may be, was the coming of Islam. If I'm interpreting it correctly. Okay, so let's move along. Let's see here. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so on page 10, and again, this is a skim of a skim. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of, kind of skimming it, kind of tying it into some of the stuff we've been been kind of going over. Yeah, I can't really do it justice because it's so nuanced and detailed. So y'all really have to check her out for yourself. But Josephus wrote that Dedon or Yadadus, potentially Judah, were settlers of Western Ethiopia. We already talked about Western Ethiopia was Africa. We already talked about that in ancient times there was a migration from Arabia into Africa, probably sometime between 10,000 BC and 5,000 BC. And I know that's a long span of time, but we just keeping it real. Okay, so the name Ditanu or Tidanu, according to Cyrus Gordon and later historians in the early Mesopotamian name for the South Arabian originated people known as Amorites. You see what I'm saying? Amorites or Amirum. He is also the Afro-Arabian and African Neolithic deity Didon. I think we talked about that. Let's see here. Whom the Greeks called Titan. Remember we talked about Greek mythology is Ethiopian mythology? Remember how we talked about in Ethiopian mythology, based on the Sabian phase that they operating from, they got a lot of giants in their mythology because they're dealing with polar mythology. They're dealing with the poles. The Temple of Dendera has Taweret, which is the Draco star constellation at the center or whatever, because they're dealing with polar mythologies. Atlas is holding up the planet because that's the pole, that's the axis of the planet, or whatever the case may be. So the giants, they were physically tall people or what have you, or physically statuesque people or what have you, but even in the mythology it illustrates that of giants. That's what I was saying. Okay, the Sabians were the inhabitants of Marowway and Ptah, where the historical Astaboron along the Nile in Africa. The Titans or Sabians, so she's relating to Titans, so she's basically saying Titans and Sabians are synonymous. That's interesting. If you go back to some of the other videos where we talked about the Sabians. So the Titans and or Sabians were both legend and tradition. I'm messing that up. The Titans or Sabians were in both legend and tradition said to be very tall statured people, like we talked about in previous videos. The word Titan is related to that of Ad as in Atlantis of the Sands. You see what I'm saying? The lost city of megalithic pillars. You see what I'm saying? The word Titan is related to that of Ad, Adad, Hadad, or Shaddad, and Chedad, all sons of descendants of Ad. Remember we said in the previous video, nothing is older than Ad. So that's a very old pre-Islamic distinction. Ad is one of the Himyaritic kings. He ties into, he's back in that era of pre-Islamic Arabians. So by late or Greco-Roman Byzantine times in Syria and the West, not only the word Midianite or Cushite, but each of the names Nabit, Kedar, Canaan, Ham, and Mitzrah had come to signify blackness. Like I said, originally they don't mean black, but on the people looking at these people, and they seeing them call themselves a certain thing, and they seeing it's just black people that's calling themselves that, they just assume that means black, or they just lumped it in with something that means black. Okay, so not because these people had come from Nubia, but because Arabians of that day were also known to be inhabitants of Syria and other places northward as black in color or Ethiopians. So it's talking about the same Ethiopian empire, all the stuff that we've been kind of getting into. Let me see here. Okay, I'm gonna go into this, and this will be the last little two snippets. Just kind of wanted to, I don't know, put this down because it's some interesting contrast to some of the stuff that we've been talking about. The word Nabatean came from the major African Arabian deity Nabu or Nebo, which was in the West called Mercury. So if you remember, if anybody's familiar with Sumerian mythology, Nabu is the son of Marduk. Marduk in Egypt is Amun. You see what I'm saying? So Nabu is the son of Marduk in Sumerian mythology or whatever. Okay, it originally signifies a prophet. It yeah, that's where you get the word Nebi and all that stuff like that. It's meaning having originally nothing to do with blackness. However, due to the African appearance of the Nabateans, the Nabateans were black, also known as the Anbat Saraceni. And she goes into earlier in this same blog about how Saraceni ties into people who are associated with Sarah, as in Sarah and Abraham, and other stuff. She talks about Sarah and Abraham. Abraham is associated with Brahma, and Sarah is associated with Saraswati, as far as like the Indian thing, because Eastern Ethiopia did that was India. So the word came to signify black. Certain Budaman clans of the Nabatean region, like Petra, Wadu Rum, and other areas of Jordan, such as the Hawatat and the Hawitat, who claim descent from the Nabateans, are still near black in color. One European traveler, as late as 1887, wrote of a sheik of the Hawitat tribes in the region of northwest Arabia, the Hejaz. The sheik soon afterward appeared. He was dirty, truculent looking fellow with very black eyes and very white teeth, a sinister expression and complexion scarcely less dark than that of a Negro. So that's his P. Austin Henry Layard, Early Adventures in Persia, Caesarea, and Babylon. It's like page 32. Let's see here. Let me see here. Okay, so circa 9th century AD, the Muslim historian Al-Masuda from Baghdad wrote, the Nabateans founded the city of Babylon. Remember, Nabateans are named after Nabu. Nabu is the son of Marduk in Sumerian so-called mythology. Babylon is Marduk's city. Babylon is Marduk's city. So the Nabateans founded, so that would be appropriate, in other words. The Nabateans founded the city of Babylon and were those descendants of Ham who settled in the same province under the leadership of Nimrod, the son of Cush, who was the son of Ham. This took place at the time when Nimrod received the governorship of Babylonia as the delegate of Dahashak. Okay, this will be the last little piece that I read from this. But I found this was kind of interesting what she goes into right here. The Arabian tradition, Nimrod of Babylon is known Nomeir, Noemeir, Numiri, or Numair Abin Kasit, Kasit with a C, K, or Q, Namir or Numir, meaning panther. Okay, I found that to be quite interesting. As far as that, because the ruler of the first dynasty of Egypt is called Menes or Normir. You see what I'm saying? The catfish king. You see what I'm saying? That's what his name means, or whatever case may be. So I found that to be kind of an interesting thing. I don't know if that's the parallel that she was making, but I found that to be kind of interesting. He is sometimes called Nomir, son of Arphaxad, or Ur Chasdim, son of Shem, which links him to the people called the historical Chaldeans. But in the Bible, Nimrod is the son of Cush, son of Ham. The suggestion is that Cush has some connection to the name of the Kasdim, who were the people also called Chaldeans. Cush, father of Nimrod, is called child of Ham, while Arphaxad or Kasit, father of Numir, refers to the Ur Chasdim and was called the first child of Shem. Kamil Salibi in the Bible came from Arabia, identifies this town with present Maksud, Waria Masud of southern Arabia. Okay, let me see here. Okay, this is actually going to be the last section that I go into. Okay, how Israel and the Levites branched off from Ishmael. All right, let me see here. This is the part I want to get into, and I'm gonna close it out with this. Okay, so according to the findings of Kamal Salibi, this is another guy. He came up. He has lectures on this same thing. He calls it Judea in Arabia, something like that. He calls it, but it's a similar thing. He has this same idea that Israel is not in the Middle East. He has this same idea that Israel is in Arabia. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Um, According to the findings of Kamal Salibi, Israel and Canaan were originally names of Southwest. Okay, according to the findings of Kamil Salibi, Israel and Canaan were originally names of areas of Southwest Arabia. So he's saying that they're originally names of Southwest Arabia, like how we talked about. Yeah, names change, territories expand and shrink. Salibi discovered the identity of the names of hundreds of villages and localities of the biblical Judea and Israel. Because remember, we can't find that stuff in the Middle East. You see what I'm saying? You can't really find all that stuff that they're talking about in the Middle East. So in localities of biblical Judea and Israel in Yemen, Hajiz, and Tihama regions. Okay, so let's say that again. Salibi discovered the identity of the names of hundreds of villages and localities of the biblical Judah and Israel in the Yemen, Hajiz, and Tihama regions, which have yet to be located in modern Israel and Palestine. Let's say that again. So he found, Salibi discovered the identity of names of hundreds of villages and localities of the biblical Judea and Israel in Yemen, Hajiz, and Tihama regions of Arabia, which have yet to be located in modern Israel and Palestine. His proposal was not acceptable to modern European historians for nationalist and political reasons. Okay, because realistically, that's why a lot of your Arabs over there kind of don't respect the Israeli thing over there, because they don't look at them like they're really those people. They look at them like they're just Europeans that came and occupied a portion of territory. So that's a part of the thing that they got going on. So people be like, man, they've been fighting for thousands of years. Not really, because the people that's been there, they don't really honor them as that. So that's kind of like another conversation all in itself. Okay, so his proposal was not acceptable to modern European historians for nationalist and political reasons. Yet the early Arab writings have also showed that the tribes descended from Ishmael and the Levites, Israel, Ishmael, and Edomites were in fact one and the same. Apparently, a portion of the children of Israel, of Israelites, otherwise or simultaneously known as Midianites, like we talked about earlier, who settled in the Hejaz and Tihama region, came to be called the children of Ishmael. So basically, like how we said earlier, these are all Arabs. Whether we're talking about the sons of Noah, whether we're talking about Hebrews, whether we're talking about Ishmaelites, these are all in their inception Arabs that just migrated to other places. You see what I'm saying? Like how it's been said that, you know, a lot of the Twa are the indigenous Africans. According to them, everybody else came from somewhere else, and a lot of other research would support that. I know the book The Lost Arabians, it supports that, talking about how, you know, a lot of your tribes that came over, your Berber tribes, a lot of the tribes in the Sahel actually come out of Arabia. I know she talks about that. She talks about a lot of your West African people and West African tribes or whatever are actually originally in their inception from Arabia. And like I said, this was probably something, this is, I ain't get this number from nobody. This is just from my personal research. Between 10,000 and 5,000 BC. That's probably when a lot of that migration took place that gives us the result of what we're talking about. I mean, I've heard authors say it was a continuous migration over tens of thousands of years. So, I mean, who knows? But, that was, just wanted to kind of lay that down. Like I said, this is, let me see here. This is some stuff from the sister Dana Marnich. You see what I'm saying? I believe I'm not mistaken. She's like a student of Ivan Van Sertima, so she got that kind of flavor in her research or whatever case may be. It's other stuff that talks about this. Let me see. What's the guy's name? I just hold on one second. Hmm. Hold on one second. Kamal Salibi. He's another guy that talks about this. Um, the book, I can't remember the author's name, Lost Arabians. It's quite a, it's a significant number of people who kind of address this topic. I know she addresses it in very great detail. So that's kind of why um, her research kind of had me in a headlock for a minute. I was kind of glued to it. So, yeah, just going into that, I mean, I appreciate y'all for checking me out. That's pretty much all I had for today. You know what I mean? We might come back with a law of power or something like that. You feel me? Continue on that playlist. But we just wanted to lay that down. Some in the ancient world, man. Peace and love, peace and blessings.